Greetings to all you viewers. Welcome to another edition of Learning Disability Today. Today I'm super excited. The reason being is I'm shooting this video in my own home, in the comfort of my own home. If you have noticed, some of my videos I usually recorded when I'm in my car. The reason being is because I'm always at work. After work, that's the time I always have the chance to shoot my videos, because by the time I'm getting home, it's already dark. And when you come home with family lifestyle, it's very hard, it's very difficult for you to focus and concentrate. So I'm so super excited that I'm doing it at home today. Thank you so much for watching. Okay, let's move on. Today's topic is going to focus on how do we diagnose learning disabilities. But before we move forward, let me just do a recap. All the other videos I've already discussed so far. First one was, what is a learning disabilities? The second one was, what are the causes of learning disabilities? And the third one was, what are the signs of learning disabilities? So if you haven't watched those three videos, please, I will advise you to go do so. Then you will follow the trends of where I'm getting at. Okay, thank you. Let's move on. How do we diagnose learning disability? A learning disability can be diagnosed at any time. Sometimes a child may have the diagnosis at childbirth, or sometimes when parents notice the different development stages of their child, then they can have that diagnosis. If the difference is so massive, then that's when they will have the diagnosis. Sometimes diagnosis of a learning disabilities can take a very long time, many years before someone can have a diagnosis of a learning disabilities. And sometimes some individuals may not have the awareness that they've got the learning disabilities as such, that leaves them to go undiagnosed. Okay, let me ask you a question. Why is it important to have a diagnosis of a learning disabilities? Let me tell you why. Learning disability is very important to have the diagnosis if you have the symptoms or the signs of a learning disabilities. Let me tell you why. Without a diagnosis of a learning disabilities, the person who has those signs, those symptoms of having a learning disability may not have the awareness that the difficulties they are facing. What do? When they find out that they are unable to achieve some roles in the societies, that they can't perform as usual as how other people who doesn't have the diagnosis, how they perform. If they find out they can perform like them, they don't have the abilities to achieve any of their needs, or they lack the ability to fulfill those needs, what do? They started blaming themselves. They started blaming themselves that, oh, why wouldn't I be able to do what other person did? Some of them finding it very difficult to find a job. They will come up and say, oh, I would like to do this job this person is doing. Let me say, for example, oh, I want to be a policeman, or I want to be a nurse, or I want to do this career. But they find out that the abilities is not there for them to fulfill that achievement they wanted to be. So what do? They started blaming themselves. And when they start blaming themselves, not having the awareness that it's because of their learning disabilities, that's the reason why they lack the ability to perform those tasks. What does that lead to? When they start blaming themselves of what is happening to them, that they can't perform rightly like the way other normal people do. This will then have an effect on the way they feel. They start having that low self-esteem. They start feeling low self-worth within themselves. They start having that lack of confidence to even socialize with others. And this can develop to having an emotional and psychological problems. Can even lead to depression. This is very important. The reason why you should have the diagnosis of a learning disabilities. So this emotional and psychological issue leading to depression that may have affected this individual can also cause the person stopping them from socializing with others due to feeling embarrassed, thinking that they are not able to perform like the way normal people do, when in actual fact, they could have lived a very well successful life. They can even have the good educational aspect they required. They can even have the job that they wanted to have if the right support was there. That is, having that diagnosis. When you have that diagnosis, that will lead you to have the right support. Person. Without a diagnosis and the right support available there, this person who has the learning disability, who is not aware of that, and because there is no diagnosis claim on them, they will go through a lot of struggles in their life. They will struggle on everything that comes in their way. They will struggle with engaging with society, finding a job, or even finding a relationship. They find it very difficult. Then they will now start questioning themselves. What is wrong with me? What is happening to me? So this becomes a very big issue for them, making them isolating themselves, not interacting with the world outside there. Okay. What are we going to do about this to support these individuals for them to have the diagnosis? If you have followed my other videos, which is what is a learning disabilities, the causes of learning disabilities, and what are the signs of learning disabilities, you will be able to tell if somebody is struggling or having a learning disabilities. So what will be my advice to you viewers? If your relatives or if your families or your professionals, if you noticed or if you have concerns of an individuals who have any of these signs I stated on my past video before, please make sure you ask for support. When I said support, one of my videos I did mention the first point of contact to receive support is via your GP or the individual's GP. Contact your GPs if you have concerns of an adult who has all the signs that I did discuss today. If you haven't watched it, go and watch. You can see all the signs for an individual to confirm that they have a learning disabilities. So if you notice all these signs and you have concerns of an individual, the way they perform, the lack of abilities to complete a task or to complete any normal daily activities job, please support them to contact your GP or their GP for them to be assessed so that they can have the right support. Sometimes the GP themselves can do the assessment, or sometimes the GP can make a referral to a professionals. So I will tell you who are the professionals that a GP can do the referral to. Sometimes it can be a clinical psychologist. They are the one that will do the assessment. It's a different tools they will use to do the assessment for them to confirm that the person has a learning disabilities. Or sometimes the GP will refer them to a team that is called community learning disability teams. They can also do an assessment. They have a different tools that they can use to assess the person before they can then come out with the outcome that this person has a learning disabilities. When the GP do this referral, if the GP themselves cannot do the assessment, because assessment sometimes it can be quite difficult, because in order for you to place someone to have a learning disabilities, the assessment takes in a different format. The reason why sometimes GPs alone cannot do the assessment is due to the environment. Because in order for you to have that assessment, it needs to take in a different environment, which I'm going to read out to you. So this assessment can only be achieved by either a clinical psychologist or a community learning disabilities. So when the referral is done to either of these teams, so what do? They will book an appointment with yourself to ask for your consent to come and visit you at your own home. Because to assess an individual, for them to place them a diagnosis of a learning disabilities, they have to assess them in the comfort in their own home, where they can see they perform. See what is lacking, what are the problems, what are the difficulties they are facing, then before you can then actually place a diagnosis. Let me just go through some of the assessment tools or some of the questions that a psychologist or a community learning disability will ask when making their assessment. These are some of the questions they will ask about your medical history, your family history, your family background, your mental health status, if you have any cognitive issues like vision, hearing difficulties, if you're on medication, what sort of medication you're on. So those are the basic questions they will ask first before they will carry out the assessment. So the factors they will bear in mind that when they come to your home to do the assessment, it's not basically the individuals they are looking at. They will look at the environment as well. What is the environment like? Is it a suitable place for this individual? Is it wet-laden? Is it damp? Or they look at the situation of the environment because they don't want a distraction to happen. Because when they are assessing, they wanted the environment to be clean, clear, and away from distractions. Also, when they are doing the assessment, they look at the mental state as well. How did the person presented during the assessment? Are they focusing? Are they getting distracted so easily? Or are they in distress when they are doing the assessment? Or they look at their motivation. Are they engaging to the assessment? So those are the factors they will look at. If they think that the environment is not conducive enough, there is not enough light, or the place is too noisy, or the person is getting distracted, or they are not engaging at all, or there is no motivation, the assessment cannot go through. Because you have to assess the person fully when they are in their best form after seeking consent. So this is how you go through about assessing. This is without placing the diagnosis yet. This is just the assessment. That's how the assessment goes. So normally it happens in the individual's own home by asking some histories, family background, medical history, medications, if they're on medication, cognitive histories, whatever is happening, medical or physical health histories, all those histories, those are the ones they will look into account. Before now they start accessing the environment. They assess the mental state of the person. Are they in distress at that time? Are they happy for the assessment to go on? Are they motivated, or are they engaging to the assessment? Those are the factors that the assessor will look at, who are either the clinician, psychologist, or the community LD team. These are the areas they will look at. It's not just the motivation side of it. They will also look at the language barrier. What language does this individual speak? Can they speak English? If they can't speak English, what is their background? What sort of language do they speak? You have to consider the interpreter, if there is any interpreter available. Because the reason is because you want to have the right resources, you want to gain the right answers, you want to gain the right assessment, that it goes rightly for the person. Another area a clinical psychologist or a community learning disability team looks at is also the sensory needs of that individual. What impairment do they have? Are they having visual impairment, hearing impairment, are they disabled? So you look at the causes, the sensory requirements that individual need. So all those aspects needs to be looked into an account in order for you to have a successful assessment. If all those areas that I've just mentioned didn't go well, the individual is not engaging well, the individual is being distressed, or the individual is not engaging to the assessment, or is not happy with the assessment, or maybe they look tired, they look like fatigue, they are not interested at all, and the environment is not conducive, is noisy, and the individual is becoming very distressed, you won't have the right result. Because what you're trying to achieve here is to get a better result. That's the fact of the individual before you can actually place them a diagnosis of a learning disabilities. So if everything that I've just mentioned didn't go well, what do the professional do? They will cancel that assessment and then they will reschedule it for another times when this individual is more settled. Sometimes it will take more than 2, 3, or 5 times assessments before you can actually get it right. Because the individual has to be in their best mental state and well-being before you can actually get the right assessment. So this is how hard it is to place a diagnosis of a learning disability to an individual. It is not an easy task. It takes patience, it takes knowledge, and it takes motivation for you to assess an individual for them to have a learning disabilities. So, in conclusion, early identification of having a learning disabilities is a very important. This is to ensure that that particular individual has the appropriate support that is available to them. If a learning disability is suspected, this is my advice to you today. Please, your first point of contact is your GP. If your GP will walk you through on how to get that support that is required. Please, carers, relatives, families, if you have a suspicion or you notice any difference, development stage of your child, of an adult, if you notice they are struggling, they lack the abilities to perform certain tasks or certain activities, and they are having all these problems that I mentioned, they've got the signs to have a learning disabilities, please help them to seek that support. The earlier they get this support, they will achieve a full potential life skills. They will have the best education, they will have the best job as well, and the support will be there. They will start engaging to society, they will start interacting, they will build their confidence back, they will build their self-esteem back, and then they will now be part of the society. So this is why we're here, to advocate for any individuals that has a learning disabilities, for them to have that right support. Don't feel shy to seek for help. Support is out there. With the right support, you will live a good quality of life like anybody else. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the comments below. Please help me to share this video so that other people can also receive this message, that they can also act upon it if they needed that support. If you haven't watched my other videos, please go and do so. It's a trend. So thank you. Take care now.